So yeah, I'm gonna try this. When I put it on the ground, I'm gonna see how those are pointing. If they're like pointing down, then that won't work either. So then I had to meet somewhere in the middle. I think they were slightly up before. So, uh, all right. Well, the only way I'm gonna tell is when I put it down on the ground. What I did too, I'm leaving the other side off because I don't know if these axles droop down perfectly straight. So once it's sitting on the ground, how it's going to sit, this one's already on. I'm just going to screw the other one to the length so it goes right in the hole without me having to force it. So while the oil pan is draining, and I drop the mother effing plug in the oil that's going down into the catch. So it's a little slow, so I got to wait till it goes down because I ain't dipping my hand up in there. Anyway, got a little incognito info. So there is the incognito pulley. So this has been on for a few hundred miles now. Um, no issues with it. It's it's easy to do. I did this on the ground, so you do not need to do anything from the top. So if you take this bottom skid plate off, and then you're gonna have to take this skid plate off too, so you can get to the bolts for the crank, the piece that holds the flex plate from turning. Anyway, uh, as you can see, I mean, I was laying on my back doing this. Now, if I had this lift, if I had put it on the lift, it would have been a lot easier than climbing underneath. The worst part of going underneath was doing the transmission part with holding it still. So regardless of you taking shit off the top, it doesn't matter. You still have to come under here and do that. So, like I said, you know, you might as well just do it all from down here. So you take this off. This, like I said, it takes like 2 minutes to take the skid plate off. Then you could reach up here with a regular wrench and just break that nut or the bolt loose. The tensioner comes off. Behind that tensioner, they give you a small, if I can get it, you see there's a shim back there behind it. There's a little, it looks like a washer. It just puts it out just enough, obviously, so that the belt rides right on the edge of the pulley of the tensioner. So it's like exactly flush with it right now. You torque these down to 40 foot-pounds, and then they give you a torque to yield bolt, which is 150 plus 150 foot-pounds plus 150 degrees of turn. And how I did it was I marked the bolt head and the pulley. That way, if I turn it and I can't see the mark anymore, I can actually rotate the crank and keep turning it until I can see the mark on the bolt head again. Like, because the pulley stays stationary. So as far as putting the belts on, I did this accessory belt from underneath too. Just stuck it up there, hooked it on, no problem whatsoever doing it from down here. And then just pay attention to how it's routed. You can see it here. So around the crank, around the idler or tensioner, water pump. Then it goes between that idler, over the alternator, down around the other idler, down to this AC, and then around the crank. So I'm telling you, because when I did it, there's no diagrams out yet online to see how they went. Because when I first put it on, it wasn't right. I had it around the wrong thing, so I couldn't. I mean, it wasn't hard to figure out. I'm just saying it would have probably shaved 10-15 minutes off me doing it. So other than that, so you torque this thing down, and then the shim behind that, and then the this right here, you see how close that is? That is like super close. That's like as close as you could get, and it ain't touching. So any closer, let's see if we that's why the pulley's only what it is, not any larger. Let me see if I can get to it there. You see that air gap? I don't know what that is, but it ain't touching. But you gotta look for that. Make sure that you're not gonna rub on that. I guess some have done that and they had to grind a little bit off of there. If you put a big pulley on, I believe that's what you gotta shave down, like if you put a 10% on here. So that's something to look out, because you know the casting might have some flashing on it, and then it'll rub the supercharger belt, and then you're fucked. So what I did, and you can put this belt on, it does fit, but through that gap. So if you ever have to change it, you do not have to remove the pulley to get it on there. And with this thing, it's super easy. Like, there's a lot of room. I mean, you could see this is all open. I'm coming down. I mean, the Hellcats, I guess, I've seen the videos of those. That suck. But anyway, I just wrapped the from down here, put the pulley on. I'm sorry, the belt. Put it around that idler right there, and then I just kind of pushed it up there, and then from there, you know, I just did the tensioner and put the belt on from the top on the passenger side, because you could totally get to everything, so that you don't have to you don't have any issues reaching out, or you have to take anything off to get to the tensioner. It's like right there. So that's pretty much it. And on the lift, had I known that this thing was going to fit on my lift like it does without an issue, I would have shaved an hour off easy. And that time frame being messing around with the sliding out from here, going over there. But if I had two people, then somebody just stayed under there, that would have worked too. But I didn't. So yeah. So I'm almost done here. So like earlier I was talking about, you get these front two where you just kind of put it through those slots, and then it's going to hang here. So if you're on the floor or whatever, it's way easier to do. I mean, it's easier to do up here too, but on the ground it's a lot harder to mess with. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible, obviously, but it's just harder to do. But it's so much easier if you just loosen that up. All right, I got 7 quarts in there right now. For people that don't know this either, I had to learn this the other day. There's this little strap here. That's basically the parking pawl. So if you want, you pull it now. We'll go and park. You'll hear it snap in. Yeah, it's in park now. If you want it to be in neutral, you just pull it out. Want it back, just pull it towards you, and it goes in. And then just close it up. So for those who want to know, it took just over 7.5 quarts. So and it's full right to the line. One last thing that I want to do with the oil change. Now I checked this, I don't know, about 500 miles ago. But this is that catch can. We'll see. I think I checked it at 1,800 miles. Just as an example. And there you go. So it does work. So I got it back on there. It's just easier with 2 hands. And I'll show you what I'm talking about up top here. So after you fish the belt up from that pulley, the tensioner is right there. So you can just reach underneath the air box and just throw the belt over the pulley on the blower, and that's it. Nothing to it. You don't need to take all this garbage off. I know people say it only takes this 15 minutes, but why bother? 15 minutes usually isn't 15 minutes either. So now we'll check up on this sway bar. Okay, I did some final tweaking on this sway bar. It's pretty level under here. And I actually made it a little longer than when I just made it longer again. So my final thought here is I think it's gonna just make it. It's gonna be real close. Like I don't think it would be to where it would damage anything. But here's the length. Okay, so I measured center of bolt to center of bolt, and I got 14.5 inches. So my recommendation is to put this on. I would almost guarantee if I lifted this up, it would just barely touch right here where it was touching before. I mean, if it would be close. And the end hole, I would not run in the inner holes. If you want to put this on and forget it and just leave it, this is what I would do. 14.5 eye to eye end hole. I think if you put it here, this is where the problem, whereas it pulls the bar up too close. So you got a TRX, not a 2500. So you're gonna have to sacrifice a little. I mean, I'm sure, I can't imagine that moving from the center hole to the outer holes changing that much to where, you know, you'd have a problem doing that. So that's what I would do. I would 14.5 eye to eye outer hole, and just forget it. You could probably just leave it there. And I would think even at full axle extension, from what I measured with it up in the air, it seemed like a 1/4 inch of travel, or actually it was a little less. And I actually just made it just a smidge longer. So, because I thought if the sway bar was going to be pointing down, whoa, if the sway bar was going to be pointing down, that would be, I wouldn't want that. So it still looks okay. So that is what I would do with that if you put the sway bar on. As far as this pulley and what I think about it. So what I think is it helps initial, right off the line, I think is where you get the most. I think that you get a lot of torque right away. And throughout the mid-range, a lot of in the meat, you know, driving around, you definitely feel it. Wide open throttle, I don't know that it's all there, because I think maybe it might pull timing or whatever and make it like essentially break even. I'm sure it's putting out a little bit more, but it might not be. Maybe with the, you know, primo gas, you know, best you can get, maybe nothing would happen, or an inner chiller or something like that. But for the most part, though, your average driving is much improved. You definitely feel the torque, especially when when it shifts too, because when it shifts, RPMs come down, everything changes. You probably get that, you know, torque back. So I would recommend, if you don't want to do anything, you know, it is a truck. I don't know why, you know, I see these 1,000 horsepower trucks and they're like, you know, oh, you got to get it. I mean, when I see they run a stock one versus 1,000 horsepower, 900, whatever, and it's beating it by like 4 truck lengths. I mean, who cares? I mean, really, it's a truck in the end. It's never going to beat the, you know, the cars. So I just don't get the big thing about that. You know, sure, I want a little more power, but I don't have to have that for just that little change. I mean, for the money you put in and what you get out of it, I just don't see it. This, bang for the buck, definitely will agree with that. So I'm waiting for some cool weather. I got a draggy. I'll run the draggy and see what the difference is, and I'll open these cutouts too and see if that made a difference. I know some headers have come out for these, but I'm skeptical on it. They're calling them mid-length. To me, they look like shorties. So, I mean, what are you going to get? 20, 25 horsepower and $2,000 for that? I don't see it. You know, like, yeah, I'll pass on that. I mean, what's that 20 horsepower going to do to a 6,000 pound truck? So you got to think about that. I mean, maybe it'll make it sound different, but I don't know. So that will be that for these. Obviously, these videos went longer than I thought they were going to be, so I've split it up into 2 pieces. So until next time, later.